It is the second Tuesday in March, and you have just finished your last shift. 43 years of work, a small cake in the tea room, and a card signed by people whose names you will forget within 18 months. You drive home. And somewhere behind you, a number you have been quietly ashamed of for a decade is about to become the only number that matters. $205,000. That is what is in your super. You are 67, you are single, and you own your house outright. You paid the mortgage off 9 years ago, and you have not thought about it since, which turns out to be the most consequential financial decision of your entire life. Every article you have read for the last 15 years told you that number was a failure, that you needed 600,000, that you were behind. You have spent a decade doing the arithmetic in your head at 2 in the morning and getting an answer you did not like. So, let us do it properly instead, with the actual published figures, and see what genuinely happens next. Start with the age pension, because it is the largest thing in this picture and almost nobody plans around it properly. Almost nobody plans around it properly because almost nobody believes they will qualify. The assets test for a single homeowner allows the full pension up to $333,000 in assessable assets. Your family home is not counted at all. You have $205,000, so you get the full rate, $1,200.90 a fortnight. $31,223 a year, indexed every March and every September against the cost of living, and guaranteed for as long as you live, whether that is another 15 years or another 35. That is not a benefit you are scraping. That is a bigger annual income than a lot of people earn working, and it arrives whether the share market is up or down, whether you live to 75 or 95. It is the single most valuable asset in this entire video, and it does not appear on any statement you have ever received. Now your super. The minimum drawdown between 65 and 74 is 5%. On $205,000, that is $10,250 in your first year. And that is the minimum you are required to take, not a limit on what you are allowed to take. Add them together. $41,473 in your first year of retirement, from a balance that every article you have read for 15 years described as falling short. And that is before you have touched a dollar of capital beyond what the law obliges you to withdraw. Now, put that against the benchmark. The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia prices an actual basket of retirement expenses every quarter. It is not a guess or a survey of opinions. Modest for a single homeowner comes to $36,434 a year as of the March quarter this year. You are $5,000 above modest in your first year, without touching your capital beyond the legal minimum, and without any part of that depending on investment performance going well. And here is the figure that should have been in every one of those articles. ASFA's own published estimate of the lump sum a single person needs at 67 to fund a modest retirement is $110,000. That figure was revised upward in February this year, for the first time in 3 years. It went up, and it is still $110,000. $110,000. You have nearly double it. The number you have been quietly embarrassed about for 10 years is almost double the published benchmark for the exact lifestyle you were told you could not afford. Nobody put that figure in a headline because it does not frighten anybody into anything. But benchmarks are budgets. They are what somebody thinks you should spend. They are constructed by pricing a basket somebody decided you ought to have. So set them aside for a moment and look at what Australians in retirement actually spend, which is a completely different exercise. When the Bureau of Statistics household expenditure data is filtered to households where the reference person is 65 or older, single retirees spend somewhere between $28,000 and $35,000 a year. That is not what they are advised to spend. That is what comes out of their accounts. Read that against the pension figure again, $31,223. The full age pension, entirely on its own, before your super has contributed a single dollar, sits squarely inside the range of what single Australian retirees actually spend in a year. Which means your $205,000 is not your income. It is your margin. It is the roof repair when it comes. The car replacement at 73. The 3 weeks in Vietnam with your sister. The year your health costs jump and you do not have to ring anybody about it. So what does the money actually do across the years? At 67, you draw 5%. At 75, that minimum rises to 6%. At 80, it goes to 7%. Then 9 at 85 and 11 at 90. The government legislates those minimums specifically so that superannuation is spent in retirement rather than passed on as an estate, which sounds like the balance drains faster and faster. But the Bureau of Statistics has found the same thing across successive surveys. retiree spending drops off from about 75. The active phase costs more than the passive one. The active phase costs considerably more than the passive one. Travel, restaurants, hobbies, and new cars fall away faster than health and care costs rise, and the net effect is a decline. So your drawdown percentage climbs at almost exactly the point your spending starts falling. That is not a coincidence in the design. And underneath all of it, every single fortnight, the pension is still arriving, still indexed, and still not running out. If your super does eventually deplete, your assets fall, and your pension goes up rather than down. Now here is the part I would be misleading you if I left out. Everything I have just told you depends on one single condition, and it is not the $205,000. Change that one thing, and every number in this video falls apart. It is the house, not the balance, not the fund, not the investment option. The house. ASFA estimates that a single retiree who rents privately needs about $50,055 a year for a modest lifestyle, not $36,400, $50,055. The difference is not lifestyle. It is rent. Rent assistance for a single is $215.40 a fortnight, $5,600 a year. Add it to the full pension, and you arrive at roughly $36,800, which is almost exactly what a homeowner needs for a modest life, and nowhere near what a renter needs. Against a $50,000 requirement, that is a shortfall of over $13,000 a year, every year, that has to come out of the balance. $205,000 covers that gap for about 15 years, and then it is gone, and then it is gone. You are 82, you are renting, and you are living on the pension and rent assistance alone, against a cost of living that assumed you would have more. Same balance, same age, same pension. One person is comfortable, and the other is in serious trouble, and the variable is not the super. Super Consumers Australia puts it plainly. A retiree who rents needs roughly twice the superannuation of a homeowner to reach the same standard of living. Not slightly more, twice. So if you were the person in this video with $205,000 and a paid-off house, the honest answer is that you are fine. Not wealthy, fine. Above modest, with a guaranteed indexed income underneath you that cannot run out, and a couple of $100,000 of genuine flexibility sitting on top of it for the things that go wrong. And if you are the same person renting, the number you actually need to look at is not your super balance. It is your housing cost, because that single line determines everything else about whether this works. The conversation you need to have is about where you will live, not about what percentage your fund returned last year. So that is what retiring at 67 with $205,000 actually looks like, once you replace the headline with the published figures. For a homeowner, it is a perfectly workable retirement. For a renter, it is a 15-year countdown. Tell me in the comments what number you have been carrying around in your head, and whether anyone ever told you what the pension actually pays.